Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this panel discussion around building an impactful and sustainable business in Africa. My name is Segen Berhe, broadcasting live from the UAE. I'm part of INSEAD's global marketing and recruitment team, and it's really my pleasure to welcome you all for the first webinar in this webinar series organized by INSEAD and the Women in Africa initiative. So for those of you who may not be familiar with INSEAD, I thought a little background may be helpful. INSEAD is a top-ranked business school with campuses in France, Singapore, UAE, and a hub for business innovation located in San Francisco. Now, regardless of where you may be in your career, so long as you have the intention to upskill, INSEAD offers a set of unique programs designed for candidates ranging from fresh graduates to seasoned leaders. Each year, we welcome over 1,500 students from 85 plus nationalities to our master's program and approximately about 11,000 participants to our executive MBA, to our executive education program. Now, it's important to note that INSEAD is a mission-driven institution. INSEAD was founded in 1957 with the mission to bring people, cultures, and ideas together and use business as a platform for peace and prosperity. This mission is a driving force in everything we do, including this webinar series. Following today's panel discussion, you will have the opportunity to participate in live case studies delivered virtually by our professors and our alumni, where we'll be discussing relevant business topics ranging from entrepreneurship, strategy, management, and sustainability, and all within the African context. Not only will you get a snippet of what our students experience within an INSEAD classroom, but you'll have key takeaways that you can take and apply to your businesses immediately. So that's it for me. I'll pass it on to Lisa Marie, who'll be moderating today's session. Lisa Marie is the UK Ambassador for Women in Africa and a journalist currently working at BBC. I hope you enjoyed the session. Please know that we'll have some time for Q&A towards the end, so please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box throughout the session. Thank you, and over to you, Lisa Marie.
Thank you very much, Segen. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar organized by INSEAD in partnership with the Women in Africa initiative. It's great to see you all here, so thank you very much for joining in on time. I'll be introducing our panelists shortly, but first, welcome again and thank you. My name is Lisa Marie Misztak. I am a broadcast journalist based here in London, and I am also the UK Ambassador for the Women in Africa initiative. I will be the moderator for today's panel on keys to building an impactful and sustainable business in Africa from the viewpoints of INSEAD alumni. So as I mentioned, the webinar is in partnership with the Women in Africa initiative, also known as WIA. WIA is an international platform dedicated to the economic development and support of African women entrepreneurs. We have a variety of different programs and events such as the WIA 54, a Pan-African business plan competition for African women, WIA hubs to support African women entrepreneurs, coding and mentoring programs, as well as a yearly summit in Morocco, a summit that I really enjoy going to. It's incredibly fun. So throughout the discussion, we will cover 4 themes: sustainability, entrepreneurship, strategy and management, which will be covered in around 30 minutes. We will then open the floor for a 15-minute Q&A session. So please do send in any questions you might have, anything you can think of. Please do send it into the chat box. And when we have the Q&A session, we will endeavor to make sure that we answer those questions. We're looking forward to those questions. So please do send them in. So first of all, I'm going to introduce our panelists. I've got Nabila Aguele. Nabila is a special advisor to Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. She is also an incoming member of INSEAD Board of Directors. This will be effective from June the 18th, 2021. Congratulations on that. She's a lawyer by training, and Nabila worked at the international law firms representing Fortune 500 companies in complex civil patent litigations. Nabila is a seasoned advisor to startups and venture capitalist firms and currently sits on the advisory board for Talent X Africa, a media and entertainment investment platform aimed at empowering African filmmakers and entertainment investors. She has a BSc in human biology from the University of Toronto, a Juris Doctor from the American University of Washington College of Law, and an MBA from INSEAD. Nabila, welcome. Thank you for being here. We also have on our panel today, Steve Kouadio. He was born in Côte d'Ivoire and currently lives in Paris. He's a father of two, and he's also married. Steve holds a civil engineering degree and an EMBA from INSEAD, and he's worked for 15 years in Africa for Vinci Construction International Networks across different African countries. Steve has almost 20 years of experience in management through complex project construction such as roads, railways, bridges, and dams. And he's also the managing director for South Paris and Central France for ETF, a subsidiary of Vinci specialized in railway construction. In his spare time, he also enjoys cooking and flying around the world. And our third panelist is Lana Mazarey. Lana is a Jordanian woman who graduated with an MBA from INSEAD in 2014. She has spent the core years of her career supporting companies and organizations in various industries across the African continent. She's worked on topics ranging from economic development in Rwanda to early childhood development in South Africa, from driving market acquisitions in Nigeria to assessing guerrilla habituation programs in the Central African Republic. Lana is also incredibly passionate about supporting other women, which led her to co-found the For Her Women's Empowerment Group. And although Johannesburg is her second home, she says her favorite place on the continent is the Masai Mara in Kenya. And our final panelist is Doseke Akporiaye. Doseke has an executive career and, she has an extensive career and an executive experience that spans over 20 years in strategy and business development, strategic human resources, and IT and financial services. She founded a boutique startup and entrepreneurial consulting firm, which transforms ideas irrespective of its stage of development into competitive business realities. She is currently the managing director and board member of Olu Energy Nigeria Limited, a renewable energy company focused on the importation and distribution of solar home systems and renewable energy products across the country, where she built the team from scratch. So those are our panelists. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. So the first topic we will be looking into is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is an incredibly important engine for change for millions of lives on the African continent. It's reported that Africa has the highest rate of female entrepreneurs globally. So to start this off, I'm going to go to Doseke. So Doseke, you have a background in entrepreneurship. With Africa having the highest rate of female entrepreneurs, they also have the highest discontinue rate. What more do you think can be done to help women scale their businesses successfully?
So thanks again, Lisa Marie. Great question. I think first of all, what I would like to mention is that this is not just peculiar to women when it comes to entrepreneurship and the discontinue rate of businesses. I think US statistics shows in the first year, 21% of businesses would fail. By the fifth year, 50% of startups would fail. So this is not a problem peculiar to women. The second thing I want to mention before I address specifically women issues are, if you ask yourself, why do businesses fail? They fail because typically people have wonderful ideas and want to build businesses around them and don't determine whether the market really needs those products. So they spend time pursuing wonderful ideas that the market either does not need or does not need it in the way that the entrepreneur is presenting it. And then they throw in cash to try and further those businesses, and then they fail, okay? And I think the last thing I want to mention in building the foundation to my response is some research shows that for women-led businesses, for every dollar invested or every fund raised, about 78 cents. They return about 78 cents, while men-led businesses return only about 31 cents of every dollar funded or invested. So first of all, the message I want to send to women entrepreneurs is that it is possible. There are people building successful businesses already, and some research shows that you're already in a better position in terms of success rates going, raising funds and going into businesses. In order to tackle the issue, I would like to address it from an external and an internal perspective. The external perspective is, I think it is important that we have more peer mentorship and coaching groups, peer-led, women-led mentorship and coaching groups built are made up of women that have gone through this entrepreneurial journey. They understand the challenges, they understand the rigors of it, and are able to provide the support for these women businesses as they go through the journeys of it. I think it's important that you identify who can give you leadership support, that either through these networks that you're able to get the kind of leadership and development support that you need as a woman, because as a startup entrepreneur, you require multiple skills to do many things in the shortest possible time and to prove that your idea is a viable business. You're not going to have all those skills and capabilities. So where do you get it from? And you have limited resources, so you can't acquire those talents in the market. So it's important you're part of an ecosystem, a network of people that you can leverage on, can give you those experiences. They serve as a sounding board. You can learn from them. They keep you accountable. And of course, having more women-focused, women-led incubators, accelerators, and funds would also help, because there's a perspective that someone that has gone through what you're going through brings into the game in terms of funding, in terms of guiding you through the development of a business. The second aspect I want to look at is the internal focus, and that is on the woman entrepreneur herself. I think by the time you decide you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to be clear that you're ready for it. It is a difficult journey. It is a rigorous journey. And you can't be doing one idea with multiple side businesses and multiple ventures. You need to say, am I ready to focus on this idea, on this business, and give it my all? Because that's what the business is going to require from you. And if you're not ready to do that, then maybe you're not ready to be an entrepreneur. And so you also find some entrepreneurs, especially women, because they're able to multitask and do several things. They start one business, then they're also pushing another business, and then they're also supporting another business. And the focus you need in a startup is critical, especially in the early stages. So to the women entrepreneurs, you need to decide you're ready. And if you're not ready, that's fine. You just need to wait until you're ready to give your all, because it is all consuming. The second thing is looking at it internally, is that you need to build a support network, right? Either from family, from friends, from mentors, whoever it is. But you need to build a support network, because you need people that will support you through the very dark days, through the very challenging days, through the days you're questioning, why you've put all your investments and your money into this venture. And you need people that will support you, will be there for you, that will keep the home front going, that will keep all your different responsibilities to community, to faith, and to other aspects of your life going. It's important you identify and build that network. Again, some of these are not just peculiar to women. They're peculiar, they cuts across entrepreneurs. But for the woman is more important, because irrespective of you being an entrepreneur, you also face gender issues, gender-related issues. If you're a mother, you have to look after your kids. You have to, be there for your kids, be there for your spouse, be there for your sibling. In Africa, we have extended families. And a lot of extended families are tied to the nuclear family. So it is important you have a strong support network as a female entrepreneur. To all these help you to ensure that your business succeeds and minimizes, the rates of failure. The other thing I would like to say is you must ensure from the onset you are building a business that is not revolving around you. That business idea and that business cannot be built around you. It cannot be built around only your competencies. So quickly, you need to be building the structures, identifying the structures, the processes, the people that will enable you grow this idea, and that you're not the only person that has the solution to every aspect of the business and every question that needs to be asked about the business. And then finally, I think people assume that governance is for established organizations. I think from the onset, you should be looking at governance, even if it's an advisory board, because what that advisory board does is that they give you, it ensures that there's accountability, they support you in terms of leadership and other kinds of developmental needs. But you can leverage on the competencies of your advisory board, because remember, you're in startup, you have limited resources, you have competing problems and issues, vying for your time. So if you have a strong advisory board or the right advisory board, they can actually help you in ensuring a market insight, understanding the market, business development, and some of the strategic issues that you just get bogged down, you forget about. Once you enter the business, you're thrown, 1,000 tactical issues and operational issues are facing you. And so even if you can't establish a proper board, it is important that you have an advisory board that is able to keep you on track.
So Doseke, sorry to interrupt, what I'm getting from you, the main theme is that you need to have this community. As an entrepreneur, you need people around you. So Nabila, I would like to bring you in here. As a lawyer and as someone who's done scoping work in the past, what advice can you give to entrepreneurs who are trying to gain that finance and funded that's really needed?
Thank you very much, Lisa Marie. And let me take a moment to thank INSEAD and the Women in Africa Initiative for putting this really important program together with a focus on women in Africa in particular, and for inviting us to be part of this panel. Doseke has really set the foundation for a lot of what I'm going to say around financing and funding. I would say everything begins with two fundamental things. Do you as a business owner, and this is true irrespective of whether you're a solo business owner, a woman business owner, or a team, do you have a viable business proposition? As Doseke said, have you explored whether there is an actual market need? It's not enough to have a good idea, but you need to ensure that it's one that the market and the consumers or customers feel is worthy. And this is something that investors are going to really be looking to vet and assess whenever they interact with you and your team. And then the second really important thing is, do you have a team that investors can trust to deliver on your business vision? There's a lot of discussion around teams. And when I say team, is this a team that is dynamic, a team that when constituted together makes up the set of expertise and personalities that can drive the business from vision and plan to actual execution and market? Do you have people who speak to different aspects of business needs, whether it's finance, strategy, marketing, et cetera? Do you have credible business owners with real experience? I mean, these are things that investors are looking to bank on, because they know that fundamentally, irrespective of how good the idea is, whether there is market need, if there isn't a team that can credibly execute on the vision, the investment is not going to really yield dividends. The other thing I would say is, this notion of community, and I think we're going to continue to come back to this, especially for women entrepreneurs. As Doseke said, the data is clear. Women-led businesses are more likely to yield return on investment, but for a number of reasons, bias in particular, policies and regulatory environments that are not sort of geared towards supporting women. And whether it's Africa or elsewhere, there are cultural hurdles, there are additional responsibilities and burdens that women face and barriers to entry. So it's really important that you before you reach that stage where you're seeking funds from sort of VCs and other more formal investors, you take the time to really leverage your community, speak to those in your community and peer-led organizations, other entrepreneurs, to really sort of not only vet your business idea, understand the different stages of seeking funding. So the reality is, as much as we speak a lot about funding from formal investors, most entrepreneurs finance their businesses for the initial period from their own pockets and through friends and family, and through informal investment sources, angels, so to speak, whether they're formal or otherwise. So really take the time to explore those. I think Doseke made a really important point about being focused and targeted in terms of how you spend your time. I would add sort of a wrinkle to that, because I've seen credible business, women-led business owners who have said, for at least the initial phases, I'm going to maintain my main job but recognize that I'm doing that and I have a specific timeline and that those monies are monies that I'm putting towards my household, but also putting into my business, with an idea that at some point, some magic point, and that's really personal and different for everyone, you will then be able to exit and that sort of day job, so to speak, and focus entirely on your business. The other thing I would say is really do your research. It's amazing how little time we spend on the internet in our peer groups asking direct questions about the things that we need. We kind of tend to talk around the issue. There's lots of information online about funding, whether it's grant-based or VC-based or otherwise. Your peer-led organizations, your communities, your mentors, those are potential investors. A lot of the businesses that I've worked with have been able to successfully raise large amounts of money for their business. And the nice thing about being a business owner in Africa is that the amount of capital that you need to necessarily begin and carry a business isn't necessarily as much as you might need in other areas of the world. So you can actually credibly raise, crowdsource from a number of different sources and have enough money to push the business to a point where it's profitable. I would say also, yes, take advantage of accelerators, of incubators. Those are places where you'll not only be able to improve upon your business, but also meet potential investors. And of course, you know, if you do participate in a program, whether it's an MBA program, an executive MBA program, those are spaces in which you'll have a community of potential investors and teammates and allies and advisors for your business.
So you've both made very, very interesting points, but I just want to add one more question to Doseke or Nabila. You mentioned the fact that women or entrepreneurs need to have solid business plans in place for them to be able to get the funding that's needed. What would you say are the very crucial things that are needed in a business plan? What's the first thing that you look at when you see one? What do they need to help them get that money?
I'll go ahead, Doseke.
Sorry. No. So first of all, I think I learned this from one of my previous bosses, and it's to try and simplify things. I think when people talk about business plans, they just get all worked up about this really complex document that I have to produce. Essentially, all a business plan does is says, this idea that you have, you know, is it viable? Where have you tested it? Have you gotten consumer insight? Is this idea or product that you want to sell, will the customer accept it? Have you gone to the market to see whether the customer will accept it? How much is the customer willing to pay for this product or service that you're looking for? So for me, if I look at a business plan, what I want to see is that understanding of the product and the service that you want to offer. I want to see that you have gotten consumer insight, that you haven't sat down in some office, in some lab, in some building and developed this wonderful document, but that it's a life and breathing document that shows how you're going to translate this idea, this need, this gap, this problem you've identified, how you're going to solve it, and what it's going to take to solve it, the target customer you want to focus on, and what are the alternatives? How are they solving that problem in the target segment, customer segment that you're looking for? So I think if you demystify the term business plan and you just look at the crux of what it's trying to accomplish, then it won't be as daunting. And I think if I wanted to put a bet on someone, I'll put a bet on someone that can answer these questions confidently based on his or her ability or experience of actually going to do the work and not contracting it to someone to get the data, because you're the one that is going to implement the business plan. So if you haven't gone to leave, this idea, you haven't gone to the customer segment, you haven't experienced it, you haven't seen how your operations are going to work, you don't know how long it takes for you, for example, to move a product from the city to the hinterland, I mean, it's just going to be theoretical. So I think for me, it's that understanding of the market, that understanding of the terrain that you want to play within, and that knowledge of execution that you're able to demonstrate that even if you don't have it, that you recognize where those gaps are and you know how to fill those gaps would be what I look for.
Thank you very much
Absolutely.
for that.
Absolutely. I would just add
Sorry,
to that.
Nabila.
Sorry, I would say, I mean, to sum it up, it's really, is there strong line of sight between your vision and your plan of execution? And as just like I said, you know, the more engaged deck is, the more likely people are willing to stay with you and to really see it through. And the time and the energy it takes to distill your business idea into a pitch deck or a business plan that is inviting, engaging, simple, easy to digest, whether you're a layperson or a VC, it speaks to the amount of time that's been spent behind the scenes, really vetting consumer markets and competitor landscape. The other thing I would say is make sure that what you put in the business plan is believable and realistic. You need financial and business models in there, but they need to make sense and they need to be believable. Don't promise what you can't deliver. Put assumptions, if you're making assumptions, really put them there. So what investors and potential stakeholders and allies are looking for is the thought process, the critical thinking that goes into the development of the business plan. So they're looking to see your assumptions, your analysis of the market, your consumers. Do you know who your competitors are? Do you know where they're better than you currently and where you're better than them? And have you anticipated the ways in which you need to grow your business to be
I think we might be losing you, Nabila.
And also, you know, do you identify the areas where you fall short, and what is your plan to address those gaps? So,
I think this is a great segue for us to actually go on to sustainability. I can actually hear you now, Nabila. We can hear you now, but we're moving on to sustainability. And this would be a great opportunity for me to bring in Lana, who has extensive knowledge of sustainability. Sustainability is an incredibly important aspect in any business. It's needed. So Lana, how can you leverage the strength and resources on the continent? How can people leverage the strengths and resources on the continent? And what have you found are some of the biggest challenges for business to be able to scale?
Thanks, Lisa Marie, for the question. Great question. Definitely love the topic. Also, thank you so much for having me here. You all mentioned the topic of community, and I'm also very privileged that I'm joining my fellow African alumni, being non-African in this topic, but it's exciting me to be here. So thanks. So I think for me, sustainability is super, super broad, but in the many projects I've worked on in the continent, a key criteria to actually be able to succeed and scale was sustainability. And by that, I mean, not only leveraging the strengths and the resources of the country and the continent, but at the same time, using them to benefit the people in the country and the continent. I'll explain that in sort of steps. I think business leaders wanting to scale and expand and across the continent need to think about, one, developing a sustainable plan on how they're going to use the country's resources while avoiding exploitation until depletion. And this happens a lot because that's the whole broad definition of sustainability, is that you're using the resources, but you're not impacting future generations from having access to that. So that is super important for business leaders when thinking about their plan. The second thing that's important is that in order to scale in a sustainable way, anywhere really, but most importantly in Africa, that's most of the work I've did, is to invest in employing locally and actually creating a more productive workforce where you're operating. And that is very important to your question about scaling. As long as sort of you're depending on the local talent and you're helping empower that and develop it, it will help you sort of achieve that expansion and scale while at the same time benefiting the country itself and the community. And I think third, which is also important, is back to our entrepreneurship topic, is to actually support small businesses along the value chain. You don't need to scale by doing everything. How can you find other businesses, probably much smaller than you, if you're an international, multinational company, who do this and know the city, country very well, continent very well, and you're just leveraging their ability to operate those businesses. I'll give two quick examples that I thought were super practical to share on those topics. For an international consumer product company wanting to expand in Nigeria, you need to scale. You need to build production facilities in the country, hire locals, use locally sourced produce in a sustainable manner for the land in the country. Another example, if you're an automotive company wanting to succeed and scale in Morocco, and I'm using real life stories here, they need to invest in hiring, training, and empowering locals. They need to support and expanding the existing distribution channels and supply chain players in the country. In my opinion, these examples sort of ensured that the business is contributing to the economy along the value chain, without exploiting the resources, as I said, to depletion. So they still exist for future generations and contributed back to the community and the country. Hope that's helpful.
So I want to bring in Steve right now. Steve, you've worked in construction for the past 2 decades on railways, waters, and dams. How do you incorporate sustainability in your work?
Okay, so thank you very much, Lisa. I'm very happy to be here. I'm the only man in the panel. Maybe I'm wondering why I'm here, but I have two reasons. The first reason is that I think all the men have a mother. So normally, all the men have a mother. So this is one of the first reasons. And the second reason is just that more seriously, when we are talking about women, we are talking about 50% of the population. And I think that it is something right to do. And what is right is normal, but everybody have to put his hand on. So this is why I'm here. And it's a very important topic for me. I will just come back to the entrepreneurship. I have heard a lot of things about it, but I just wanted to add something that is for me very important, is that you need to be very honest, be true and be honest. Honest about what you present to the stakeholder, but also honest with yourself by knowing what is your strength and what is maybe your weaknesses, and build on it. Don't try to hide the things. Coming back on sustainability, what we were doing in my company. First things, we were certified for ISO, the International Standard Organization for Management for Quality, Security, and Environment. So we were dealing with it in all our processes at the management level. But more concretely, what we're doing is trying to reduce our impact on the environment and try to lower our carbon impact, which is more globally in our organization. But what we were doing, like locally, we try to involve all the stakeholders, people working there, the village around when we are building roads, for example, or when we are bringing water. We are working for people. So in our work, it's very important that all the stakeholders, the guys who are going to pass in front of his house, is also have a word to say. So our customer is not only the government, our customer are all the stakeholders, all the people involved, and we try to listen them. We were working also on some social projects. When we are building a road, for example, you can just add the construction of an hospital close to the road. You can work also with a playground for kids. We can also build some school. We are doing some project like this. In our corporate social responsibility, we have a program which is called ISA, Initiative Social Atom pour l'Afrique. It is in French, sorry for that. It's ISA. This project, we are financing some projects for the community, and we try to see what are the projects we can have a deep impact on the community, so we are financing it. So each managing director in his country check the project that if he find interesting, and there is a committee, and you present the project, and when the project is validated, but you can have some funds and you can give it to the project, you follow it up to the end. So we are working on this kind of thing, but more holistically, we are really working on local talents and local training. We try to hire locally and try to develop the skills of the people. when I was working in Burundi, our rate for the local employee was 99%, which is one of the highest that I had. And we are working sometime in the area where it's very specialized, but we try to train people when we arrive. We will bring somebody who will going to teach the people what we need until they reach the level, and the goal is to use local talent, local people to do the things. So we are working, our work basically is to improve people's life. Infrastructure is just building roads, connections, supply, water supply, all is linked with people. So people is basically at the middle of what we are doing, and we're trying to deal with it in a way that it can last for a long time. So we try to make it sustainable like this. So this is what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Steve. Now I want to move on to management. For any business, management is a crucial aspect. How you manage it can make or break a business. So Nabila, I want to bring you in here. In your role as a special advisor to the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning in Nigeria, where your work includes supporting on results-based decision-making for policy formation, what advice can you give for data-driven management and decision-making?
Thank you, Lisa. So the first fundamental form of advice is to really understand that for any business to succeed, whether it's to attract investments, to be sustainable, to be able to scale, entrepreneurs need to really be thinking about the extent to which they're collecting and analyzing data, whether it's consumer data, whether it's their own financials, whether it's competitor data, and really analyzing that data and ensuring that their decisions as a team, as a company, are made from a data-based mindset. There's been a lot of discussion around sort of this transition, both worldwide and in Africa in particular. And it's amazing how and not just on the continent, across the board. I think HBR in 2019 released a piece around data-driven decision-making, that whether it's established companies, there still seems to be this challenge with respect to managers and business owners getting outside of sort of their assumptions and their emotions and their biases, and really going to the data and letting that drive some of their decisions. So I would say it's really important to have that mindset. We've seen the impact of not having a data-driven mindset, both in the policy space and in the business space. And this is especially important now post-COVID, and I really want to situate this conversation that we're having in this post-COVID-19 reality, where we're operating in a resource-constrained environment. Governments and investors are constrained, entrepreneurs are constrained, and now more than ever, it's so important to make decisions around where you put your money as a business owner, where you scale back your business to ensure that you can be viable and survive, especially in these really challenging times. You have to go to the data. I mean, ultimately, I would encourage more business owners to have a clearly defined processes to increase data based decision making and data creation and analysis within their companies.
Doseke, you run your own business in Nigeria and you've helped to employ many people. What would you say are some of the challenges? Nabila's just mentioned the pandemic itself, but what are the main challenges that you've been experiencing over the past few years in managing those teams?
Again, thank you for this question. I think people, let's start with people, right? Finding the right talent. Finding the right talent in terms of attitude, in terms of character, and in terms of ability or capability. I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges. And it doesn't matter how wonderful a vision you have or idea that you have, your ability to execute that idea is directly linked to the quality of people that you have. So finding the right talent that can help you translate this idea, this vision that you have as a business, and execute it in line with the objectives that you have as a business. And remember, once you've raised funds, It has, like Nabila said, it has nothing to do with your emotions anymore. It has to do with the KPIs that you've promised your funders and your investors. So having people that have strong execution capacity, the attitude, the competence. The second thing I also want to mention again is matching talent to the stage of growth of the business. So the kind of talent you have in a startup environment, you want someone who is capable of doing multiple things, capable of taking up multiple responsibilities. As the organization evolves, those skills you need to hone in and zone in on more specific skills. And so you need to be looking at your talent pool and saying, these people that I have I identified the ones that I want to keep? And if I've identified the ones that I want to keep, what kind of development programs am I putting in place to ensure that they can be relevant to the business as we evolve? Because as the business evolves and grows, the competencies required, the capabilities required change. And so someone that may have been great as a startup where they could do 1 million and one things, may not be good in 5 years' time, where you need the person to go deeper in terms of market analysis, in terms of matching decisions, getting data-driven decisions. And in Africa, it's more complicated to get this data because the market is so fragmented, and you almost need a different solution for each of the fragments of customer segments that you have. So it's important that that is a challenge. The second thing is you're competing with companies that have deeper pockets. So most of the businesses don't have unlimited resources. But if you want a good finance person, you're competing with an IOC, an oil company that has the money to pay, a telecoms that has the money to pay, a more established, mature business that has the money to pay. And so those are the realities. And I think from a company perspective, what we must be asking ourselves is, how do we develop a compelling EVP, employee value proposition, in such a way that I can't compete in terms of money, right? But what reason do I give my employees to stay with me for as long as possible? Because I need them to execute this vision. There's a cost to onboarding. There's a cost to bringing on someone into the organization. And if I've made this initial investment, it doesn't make sense that I lose these people. And it's difficult because you have to weed through the recruitment and onboarding process people that are driven by things other than money, right? And you have to.
I think that also a main thread that's running through what you're saying is also strategy, which I want to go on to as our very last subject, as I know that we're going to open up the floor soon to our Q&A. So I've got two questions that I'm going to put to Steve and Lana. So firstly, to Steve, you've worked in construction across the continent. What advice can you provide on strategy to make a business stand out?
Okay, I think most of the things has been already said in all the different interventions at different level. But just to sum up it, I will just identify 5 points which I consider very crucial. I will talk about the project and the services that you want to provide. I will talk about the understanding of the industry, the environment, and the stakeholder you have around your business. I will talk about the team, which is something very crucial, building a good team. I will talk also about your business plan. What is my idea? What is the value of my idea? What is the market behind it? How I'm going to finance it at the early age, and maybe how can I scale up? And then also partnership, which has already been said. That means that I'm doing a startup. Maybe I will try to find another startup who is doing something that it can complete my project, and begin like this and growing, and then maybe try to have a bigger financing. So talking about the project, there to be more specific. We have to talk about differentiations. What you bring new, what doesn't exist that you are bringing. Do you have a competitive advantage? Do you have any added value? What is the value chain that you are bringing? It's very pain point, a gap. what do you bring to the industry? You have to, ask this question. When you talk about the stakeholders and the people involved, what are the needs? What are the interests? What are the actors? What is the network? What is the impact? You have to pay attention also to the unintended consequences of what you are doing. Sometimes you want to do A, but this is B coming, and you don't plan it. So you have to have a kind of holistic view. When I talk about teams, you have diversity. You have people. Diversity is not only about gender or origin or culture. It's also about what people do. When you bring an engineer and you bring a lawyer, and you have to make them work together, they don't think, always in the same way. So, bring diverse people with diverse background, an engineer and a lawyer, an architect or a designer with an operational guy, the operator with the mechanics, all these things, bring them together and make it like they had it, their competencies in order to make your business going on.
Thank you, Steve. So I quickly want to bring in Lana very briefly before we're going to open the floor to the Q&A. As head of marketing and business expansion at Amazon Flex, what were some of the main strategic points you would create before you went out into the market? Very briefly, and we'll open up the floor for the questions.
I'll be super quick. This is not just as I work now at Amazon, even previously when I worked with BCG, one of the talented people I worked with was the global of creativity, actually, which is a very cool role, by the way. Who does not want to have that role? But anyway, let me be focused. Gave me a lesson in strategy that I think was super important. And the pandemic today teaches us how it's important when we think about a strategy, about going to the market. We as humans are not good at predicting the future. We live in a world with a lot of uncertainty, fast paced, constantly changing and evolving. And instead of sitting and they're saying, this is what I predict will happen, this is how that my strategy looks like, the suggestion that he gave to strategists was, you need to think about your biggest reasons of uncertainty or causes of uncertainty. Imagine a world that's completely unpredictable, a world where we wear masks and need to sit at home, that no one imagined will happen at this time. And think, can my strategy be resilient, and can I be flexible and adaptive in it? If your strategy can be strong in no matter what the future brings in the biggest areas of uncertainty, and it's adaptive and flexible for you to change when things change, you will succeed in the market. As long as you get stuck where you are and you're not being able to go strong in times of change quickly in times of change, you will be stuck and strategy won't succeed. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Lana. So I have got some questions that have come in and I will put them to you all. So one of the questions are, how do we hold businesses accountable to their sustainability commitments? Maybe Nabila, this could be a question that you can answer.
Thank you. This is a really excellent question. I think the best way to hold businesses accountable, first and foremost, is to understand what are their sustainability commitments, and also are you patronizing them or not, right? So as a consumer, we all have the power to decide who we do business with, whose products we consume and purchase. And I would say one of the most powerful fundamental ways to hold businesses accountable is by choosing not to patronize them when their practices or products or policies are not in line with sustainability values. That being said, I think currently there's a move in general towards holding not just businesses accountable with respect to sustainability, but governments, multilateral finance institutions as well. And one of them is really sort of ensuring that people document and have sustainability paths or frameworks that are not just focused on businesses, but also in the environment in which they operate. So for businesses to be accountable towards their sustainability goals, they need to operate in an environment that's enabling toward that. So I would say in holding businesses accountable, you also want to ensure that your regulatory and policy environment is such that it can not only enable businesses, but inspire and provide the incentive for other businesses to enter that space as well.
Lisa Marie, I want to add something to what Nabila said. Sure. For everyone listening and for all of us, like, we cannot underestimate the power of the consumer, as Nabila said. Like, choosing to buy, use services and products from unsustainable brands and companies is so powerful. And I just, encourage everyone not to underestimate it.
And I've got a question from Lola Sanchez. She asks, how did the MBA program at INSEAD help you in your career in Africa? Doseke or Nabila?
So let me take this. I think one of the advantages of the MBA program at INSEAD is the diversity. I think in my class we had over about 184 countries represented in the program. And what happens is at the beginning of the program, everybody came with their biases. We had a course that essentially addressed the biases that you have. And understanding that there's diversity, understanding that people come with different perspectives and views. One, it makes you to be a bit more accommodating when you're in the workplace and you're dealing with people from different backgrounds, different countries, and stuff like that. But also it shows the value of getting multiple and diverse viewpoints in terms of either product development, in terms of decision making, and just making sure that you have a holistic view. And I think for me, what INSEAD does is it always makes me remember that whatever angle I'm viewing something at, there are multiple angles, there are multiple vantage points, and it is important to deliberately solicit and get these inputs, in the running of the business, in the decision making, in the policies that you roll out within your organization. I think aside of the network of people, but I think that is something that I carry each day in my business. Thanks.
I would just like to add, because I'm someone who pivoted post INSEAD entirely. At INSEAD, we call it the big three: region, functionality, and sector, and I changed all of them. I mean, I'm Nigerian originally, but have spent the majority of my life and career outside of the continent, and really came to INSEAD knowing that I wanted to, after having worked as a lawyer for quite some time, both in the private sector and also as a professor, I really wanted to be back in Nigeria doing work that was meaningful and impactful, and not necessarily as an attorney. And so for me, INSEAD, as Doseke said, the wealth of diversity at the school is really critical, but also sort of the way the program is designed with the 2 campuses and the 10-month intensive period where every 2 months you're experiencing something new, whether it's in France or Singapore or Abu Dhabi, it really sort of opens you up in a way that you don't realize you need to be. So you can be brave, you can be resilient, you sort of have people questioning your ideologies, your motivations, whether personal or business or otherwise. And I think it really forces you to do the soul searching, whether that's what you came to do or not, that you need to really sort of, I think, be resilient in the Africa context, or pivot or transition, whether it's from one region to the other, or whether it's from one industry to another within the continent. I cannot understate the value of the network. I am a direct beneficiary of that. I find that INSEAD is very unique in that if you are someone who has a voice, who speaks up, who engages, whether through the alumni or the administration or the faculty, there's a space for you to not only be heard. People don't just smile and nod at your ideas, but they actually look for opportunities to engage you, not just behind the scenes, but at the leadership table. And I think that's really powerful about the INSEAD experience.
And Lana, did you have something you wanted to add in on that?
Sure. I mean, what everyone said is so true. The network in the continent is phenomenal. When I was choosing where to study, I wanted to focus on a school that has a big network of alumni in the Middle East and Africa. And it is just beyond belief, the number of people, and it's not just number of people in the biggest, South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, it's actually everywhere. Anywhere you go, you'll find someone who was at INSEAD, whether to take you out for a drink or to support you in a recommendation for business or to connect you with someone in the country. That is so important, and people underestimate. They think they're going to a school just for a curriculum. And then the network of people around the world just takes it to a completely different level. And I think that's what INSEAD has really, really going strong for them in the continent of Africa. And I think it's only going to get better. Hopefully also with Nabila joining the board of directors, she just drives, the push of hiring and focusing on the continent even more.
Steve, what's your main takeaway from being part of INSEAD as an alumni?
They talk about the network, they talk about connection, they talk about all the knowledge and all the things that you learn at INSEAD. So this one, I will not say it again. Personally, I can say that what I learned a lot about myself. When you want to be a leader, as I was saying, and as all of the panelists say, you have to be honest. You have to be honest in the sense that you have to know yourself. Know what is your strength and what is your weakness, and accept it first, and then work on it. You will never find a perfect match with what you want to do. So you already have some strength and some weaknesses, and you have to be aware of it, and then you have to see how to deal with it. So particularly for me, I would say that INSEAD just like a kind of wake up, awareness of about connection, about all the things around me. So I was thinking this way, and now I'm thinking like this. So this is INSEAD. Broaden your view and see more than what you're thinking before. So this is my takeaway.
So that brings us to the end of this webinar. It's really flown by, but I've learned so much, and I hope everybody that has joined us today has also learned and has some takeaways from this. As it was mentioned in the beginning by Segen, this actually is the first in a part of a series that INSEAD and Women in Africa Initiative are going to be conducting, and those webinars will be with Steve, Doseke, Lana and Nabila going forward. Once we do have those dates, we will send them out across the networks. But I just want to say thank you again to my panelists, Nabila, Lana, Doseke and Steve. Thank you for your insights, and thank you for everybody that joined in today.
Thank you, Lisa Marie.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa Marie.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for our participants.